Hey, everybody, welcome to Retell Cellar, an ephemera podcast where I uncover forgotten stories and the ephemera people leave behind. I'm Angie, a reseller of 10 years, and I'll share one of those snippets with you. Let's see what today's find has to say. I need to start off with I mean, no disrespect, and I'm not making fun of Fred Noonan in naming this episode, if anyone took it that way. I only mean to call myself out on the fact I didn't know Amelia had another person with her by the name of Fred Noonan on their final flight. I found out in my many searches I'm definitely not the only one. Let's take a look at the couple of pieces which sparked the episode. I didn't come across them at the same time, one I picked up at a local online auction, the other from a flea market. I'd first acquired a small 6.5 by 3 5/8 inch unused anniversary envelope honoring Amelia's last flight, and it's almost fully covered with various images and wording. On the left side, it shows a cropped image of Amelia in different shades of brown, which honestly could be some discoloration due to age or storage. Underneath, in the lower left, in small lettering, reads Dayton Stamp Club. The middle says 1987 Airpex 12, 50th anniversary last flight of Amelia Earhart, 1937 to 1987. The wording is followed by an image of a blue plane, and under the plane, it shows a map of the flight path starting in Lae, New Guinea to Howland Island. The right side of the envelope has a 22-cent stamp showing fireworks over the American flag. Below, stamped in black, has another small image of Amelia's face, and opposite is a plane along with Airpex 12, STA, October 10th, 1987, Dayton, Ohio, 45401, Earhart Noonan, 50th anniversary, 1937 to 1987. Regarding the second piece, in 1963, the U.S. Airmail postal stamp honoring Earhart was released, and it's a 5 1/4 by 8 1/4 inch glossy, thicker piece of cardstock. The top left is stamped as if processed through the mail, saying Atchison, Kansas, July 24th, 9 a.m., 1963. The top right is stamped first day of issue, along with the 8-cent stamp of Amelia Earhart standing in front of a plane off in the distance behind her. Just below is an image of her sitting on a cushioned chair or couch, and her arms are hugging her knees, and she's smiling for the camera. Underneath the photo is a short biography, and here's how it goes. In Atchison, Kansas, on July 24th, 1898, Amelia M. Earhart was born in the home of her grandfather, Judge Otis. Her father, Edwin S. Earhart, was a native Kansan who graduated from the University of Kansas in 1895 and worked as a claim agent for the railroad. Amelia was known as the Atchison Tomboy. She loved life and, with her sister Muriel, enjoyed the early years and the strenuous games of childhood. Amelia saw her first airplane at the Iowa State Fair in Des Moines on her 9th birthday. It was of little interest to her at the time, even though her father was intensely interested in the contraption. 1919 saw her studying at Columbia University as a pre-med student. In later years, she was a teacher and a social worker. She became interested in aviation, and on June 17th, 1928, flew across the Atlantic as a passenger in the monoplane Friendship, piloted by Wilmer Stoltz and his mechanic Lou Gordon. From then on, her next 9 years were filled with the thrills of flying, and she engaged in air derbies and speed races. She was aviation editor of Cosmopolitan magazine from 1928 to 1930. In 1931, she was married to George Palmer Putnam. On May 20th and 21st of 1932, Amelia Earhart became the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic from Harbor Grace, Newfoundland to Ireland. She made several transcontinental flights from Los Angeles to Newark, making records. In 1935, she was the first to fly solo from Honolulu to California in her Lockheed Vega. In April, she soloed from Los Angeles to Mexico City and from there to Newark. In March 1937, she flew from Oakland to Honolulu. She was the first woman to receive the Distinguished Flying Cross. On June 1st, 1937, she left Miami with Fred Noonan as co-pilot for a trip around the world at the equator. This trip took them to South America, Africa, India, and Australia. On July 1st, the two left Lae, New Guinea for the 2,550-mile trip to Howland Island in mid-Pacific. It was on that leg of the flight that their Lockheed Electra disappeared. In spite of tremendous air search by the U.S. Navy, no sign of the flyers was ever found. So Amelia is the easy part of this story, not because her life was simple, but because there was so much to find. Her image is everywhere. Stories, both good and bad, are everywhere. When I got to the end of the card, I was shocked I hadn't known there was another person sitting there with her, flying across the world. Fred Noonan was born April 4th, 1893, in Cook County, Illinois. His mother, Catherine, died when he was young, only about 4 years old. According to Wikipedia, his father, Joseph, appears in the 1900 Chicago census as living in a boarding house. And I did find what I think would be the same Joseph, having him listed as a porter for his employment. It's been assumed Fred was an only child and most likely raised by friends or family. I found a site saying in the early 1900s, school records list Fred as having attended 3 different elementary schools with 3 different home addresses and a different guardian of record each year. At just 17 years old, he got on a British sailing ship called the Crompton as an entry-level ordinary seaman and shipped out of Seattle. Over the next several years, he worked on more than a dozen ships, slowly moving up the ranks. And during World War I, while never in the Navy, he served as officer aboard merchant ships carrying ammunition and survived 3 separate vessels being sunk. He had built a serious maritime career, eventually earning a license, allowing him to captain steamships of any size. Noonan had learned to fly in the 1920s, and during the early 30s, he began working as a navigation instructor for Pan American World Airways. I came across an article from April 18th, 1935, and it reads partly, "A large share of the credit for any extended ocean flight must go to the navigation officer, Fred J. Noonan, who holds that position on the Pan American Clipper, is a navigator from way back. During the past several years, he has made exhaustive studies of various methods of aerial navigation and is considered one of the foremost authorities on this important phase of air transportation. In 1935, he was the navigator and part of a larger crew of the China Clipper, successfully making Pan American's first trans-Pacific flight. After all of that, he ended up resigning from Pan Am, saying it was due to not having farther to go in the ranks as navigator. When Earhart was planning her flight around the world, she chose Fred to be her navigator, but only after Harry Manning, a skilled radio operator, also a navigator, backed out. There was a first attempt to go around the world, and in the second leg, it ended in a crash at takeoff from Hawaii with Harry, Fred, and with Amelia piloting. The Lockheed Electra 10E was severely damaged and would need to be sent off for repair. The plane was purchased by Purdue University for $40,000 through the Purdue Research Foundation. Another $40,000 was added through donations to make various modifications, totaling $80,000, which would be about $1.5 million today. And Purdue did this with the expectation they'd get it back for further research once the flight was complete. Shameless plug here, I did a previous episode where I talk about an old Purdue yearbook I have from 1952, in which a famous Purdue graduate by the name of Ruth Seams, inventor of stovetop stuffing, attended. So I'll leave that link in the show notes. Once the Lockheed Electra was repaired and the trip was back on, Harry had decided he wasn't going to continue. There's conflicting information as to why he backed out, whether it was his inability to get a leave of absence or he was uncomfortable with Amelia's handling of the plane that day. But in Amelia's Wikipedia page, they make it sound like they just wanted a better navigator due to some tests they'd put Manning through. On May 20th, 1937, Amelia and Fred began their second attempt to fly around the world and follow a close to the equator route. On July 2nd, 1937, they left Lae, New Guinea, heading for Howland Island, and radio contact suggested they were having trouble locating the island, and contact was eventually lost. Major search followed, but no confirmed trace of the plane, Amelia, or Fred was found. Fred was a student of Philip Van Horn Weems, trained in celestial navigation techniques Weems helped develop. And after Noonan disappeared, Weems was quoted as saying, Noonan had been flying for Pan American for many years, and it was all in his day's work to hit smaller islands than Howland square on the nose. Many people, of course, blame Fred. He was the navigator. He was also known to drink. In the New Yorker, they published an article in 2025 called Amelia Earhart's Reckless Final Flights. They talk about how when Amelia and Fred were in Calcutta, Fred had gotten drunk at a bar, and Amelia called her husband, who told her to call it off, but she didn't. In the very same article, they then write Amelia told a reporter off the record Noonan had gotten drunk, and she didn't trust him, only to have Putnam insist on continuing with him. There's other potential issues, like Wikipedia stating later research showed that Howland's position was misplaced on their chart by approximately 5 nautical miles. The radio log of the last communications of Amelia Earhart can be found on the National Archives site, and I'll link to that and others in the show notes. We all know Amelia never came home, but not near as many of us probably knew of a man named Fred. Never came home either. Each had loved ones anxiously awaiting news saying they were found safe and sound. An article posted July 4th, 1937, highlights both Amelia's husband and Mrs. Noonan. It shows an image of George scribbling notes about the last message relayed to him. 9:29 a.m., Friday. Wind east-northeast 6 miles, partly cloudy, barometer 29.82, visibility 20 miles, temperature 81. Calm sea, clouds cumulus, unlimited ceiling. Mrs. Noonan is pictured sitting at her radio awaiting the rescue of Fred. She was quoted as saying, I know they will be all right. They may have a few uncomfortable hours, but I know the Coast Guard or somebody will locate them. My husband's flying ability and luck will carry him through. Thank you for joining me as I shared a snippet of the past. I'd love to know if it connected with you in some way. Did it spark a memory or make you see something differently? If so, consider sharing it. Be sure to check out the show notes for additional info, links, and ways to connect. It's not nostalgia, it's human. Until next time, may you find something worth holding on to.